All right, so this tutorial is for a back bend that can be very intense, but we're going to work at it from all levels. What you'll need is, if you have 3 blocks or anything that you can find, 3 big books, a strap or a tie of some sort, and a chair, and maybe a blanket. Probably if we're going to do a quad stretch, that might need a blanket underneath for padding. So gather those props, and then we'll start with a shoulder stretch. So the first stretch we'll do is cow face, and I'm just going to sit in the chair for this. You could actually, I'm going to sit on my hips, or take a hero, and I'm going to sit facing the opposite side of you so you can see the back. So I'm actually going to pad up my hips here just for a hero pose. You could use a block. Since this is a back bend, I just want to keep my thighs nice and open and make sure that they're cooperative. So I'm going to sit down, hero pose. So my ankles stretch out. And then this cow face arm stretch, we're just going to take one arm overhead. So I'm going to start with my right arm, and then I'm going to use the belt here just to kind of pull my right arm down. Okay. So not really a full-blown cow stretch. I'm just kind of pulling this left hand to pull my right hand down my back, my right elbow up behind my head. Pull your front ribs back in a little bit and just lift your chest here. Take about 5 breaths. All right, and then release that. Roll your shoulders around a little bit. And your head side to side. Okay, and then we'll do side 2. So I'm going to take the belt in my left hand and take it above head. And then I'm going to reach under for my right side and just start to pull that left hand down my back a little bit. And I'm pushing down from my triceps, my right triceps, so that the right shoulder is not coming forward. And I'm also not wonking out my right shoulder. So that left elbow is coming up behind head. Push down into your sit bones wherever you're sitting. 5 breaths here. All right, and release that. Nice and easy. Set the belt aside. Shake it out. All right, next stretch we're going to use a chair for, and it's still going to be a little shoulder stretch. So we'll take a tricep stretch. I'm going to bring the chair over here on my mat. All 4 legs are on the sticky mat so it doesn't kick out. And then I'm going to take my elbows to the chair. You can come to standing for this or kneeling. And then I'm going to walk my elbows forward so the bony part of my elbow is not on the chair seat or the back. And then elbows are going to move together, palms together, thumbs back towards my upper back, and then just kind of drop my chest down here. Just breathe smooth, easy breath here. So hopefully your forearms can start to come together here. Okay, easing up out of that, nice and slow. And then just let your arms relax. Move your head and shoulders around a little bit. All right, the next stretch we're going to go to the wall for. For this stretch, you'll want 3 blocks if you have them handy. I'm going to put 2 blocks against the wall, the long, so they're on the shortest height, and they're going to butt up to the wall length the short end to the wall, so they're long. That's gonna house my elbows. And then they're just far enough apart as I would, hope my elbows could be in the center of those blocks. And that's about as wide as my shoulders would be with my elbows coming on the center of those blocks. And then the third block I'm gonna have in my hands. So the important thing about this is we're gonna hold the block in between the palms. And if you start holding the block like this instead of like this, you'll be fine, okay? So the long edge of the block is going to eventually come back up into your back, but that won't work if you've got the wide surface area of the block in line with your thumbs. Okay, so you want the thumbs parallel with the skinny long edge of the block. Okay, and then I'm going to situate my elbows on these blocks. I'm going to fix this first because I know I'm going to be loud. All right, so again, I've got the short edge on my thumbs, and then I'm going to elbow the blocks. And then I'm going to walk my elbows as close to the wall as possible. So now I've got the long edge of the block to the wall. My palms are pressing into the block. So I can feel my upper trapezius start to work and push my shoulder heads apart. And my elbows are up at the wall. So if you can, get your elbows to the wall. And then you're going to start to lift your knees and walk your feet forward until you feel the edge of that block push into your upper back. And this is a nice shoulder stretch. This is a good prep for headstand, forearm stand, any position where your arms are coming above head in the shoulder flexion. And then additionally here, I like to flip my palms. So the back of my hand comes to the wall and my palms face out. And then my pinky edge of my hand is pushing into the block. And stay here as long as it feels good. If it starts to be achy in your shoulders, come out of it. It's not necessary to stay there any longer. You don't have anything to prove. Also, you can flatten your soles on the floor. You can bend your knees if you need. Push your hips up a little higher. Play with these little adjustments that are going to fine-tune this stretch. And when you're ready to come out of it, you're going to flip your palms back to that brick, the block, and lower your knees down slowly. Come down, ease your elbows off, and then you can even take child's pose here. Okay. And then we'll move on to the next preparatory thing. All right, so one more little thing with the arms before we move on to the legs, to prepare the legs. This is gonna combine legs and arms. We're gonna come into high lunge, and I'm gonna take this belt and loop it around my right thigh. And then I'm gonna have the belt on the back of my thigh like a stocking seam. I'm gonna take high lunge. You're welcome to stay at the wall here for this. I think this is a really cool setup. You can take your foot up inside the blocks and push into the heel. This way your heel won't turn out or in. You can simply put your heel on the wall, all right? So I'm gonna take my left foot forward and my right foot back into place. Right heel pushes into that block. Left knee goes forward. So I'm in my high lunge here. Nope. In a minute. Okay, and then I'm gonna have the block or the belt behind me with my arms. My right arm I can start, left hand can come up then, and then I'm gonna start to push up and take a bit of a back bend here. So really pushing that left knee forward, pressing your chest up to the ceiling, pushing the strap up. Come out of that after about 5 desperate breaths. That's what I felt like. Okay, and then we'll switch sides. I'm going to take the belt off my right thigh and click it over to the left side. Again, turn the belt so it's at the back of your left thigh. I'm not going to use any blocks on the wall. I'm just going to use the wall. I just want to see the difference. I didn't like that so well. It was really hard for me. I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Challenge isn't bad. Okay, so the right foot forward, left heel back to the wall. So you play with this at home as well. Notice that one thing that works for me isn't going to work for you, right? And the thing that worked for you isn't going to work for me. So work these modifications, pause the video, go back and rewind, and just take them slowly but surely. And maybe that shoulder stretch you need to revisit again once we get into the actual posture and you go, oh, it's my shoulders. Or you go, oh, it's my thighs. And we need to revisit some of the thigh stretches that we're going to do in just a moment. The whole point of these tutorials are for you to work them at your own pace and stop when you feel like you need to stop. Just work the things that you're comfortable with and then move on later and go back and revisit this later, right? So if you want the block at the wall, no block at the wall, maybe not even anywhere near the wall, that's fine. Strap is behind. I'm going to start with my left hand and then right hand comes down and then I'm going to push up and let the belt pull that left thigh up. Take your knee, right knee forward, press your heart up to the ceiling. So this just feels more stable for me without the block. So I like the wall, but the block just felt really squishy and unstable and it was messing with my mind. Take those 5 desperate breaths. All right, enough of that. That's a good one though. Yeah, I like that. Okay, we'll move on to the next. All right, so next we'll work with Agni Sambhasan, a fire log pose to get the hips open. If you want a blanket or a block, I'm going to keep those handy just in case. Got them handy. I'm going to start with my left ankle under my right ankle. So my right ankle is hooked on top and my feet are on the floor comfortably, the outer edges of my feet. Ankles are flexed. And then I'm going to start to heel toe my feet away from each other so that my knees come to opposite ankles eventually. And then stay here. Or if you want to lift this right foot up and put it on top of your left thigh, this is where the blanket might come in handy. You might need the blanket under your left thigh, under your foot, between the knee and the ankle, because sometimes the ankle digs into this and it really hurts. Or even here, once we get this foot up, I'll show you. There may be a gap here, so the block is nice here to have. When you set this leg up, if you do, the heel doesn't come back. It's not lotus, it's fire log pose. So the heel stays up, push out through the ball of your foot on both feet. And then if you need that extra padding, or extra support, put the block between. You can fold or stay upright here. I like the block under my forehead. So getting the hips opened up here is a really good prep for back bending. It just keeps, any resistance that you can get rid of is going to help with a back bend. And the resistance comes from places you would never expect. And the outer hip, inner hip, there's always some kind of stickiness that can really get in the way of those back bends. That's why they're such a, precarious, precocious little part of the practice, right? Okay, and then we'll come up and set up for the second side. If you want a little longer there, pause the video and take your time stretching out this part of the body. Okay, take that right ankle off, left ankle off, and then I'm going to crisscross the opposite way. So now my left ankle in front of my right, and my feet are just in close enough so that I can feel the outer edges of my feet on the floor. So if they're too far away, it's not going to be crossed, right? It's just going to look weird. And then you're going to heel toe your feet away from each other until you get those opposite ankle and knees lined up. Again, use the blanket anywhere you might need it. So I typically like the blanket here because this left hip's a little tighter. So the knee is up and it digs down at an angle with that left ankle into my right thigh. So I just know that that's something that usually really digs and doesn't feel good. And then again, you can set your block up underneath your left knee if you need that extra little support. Push out through the balls of your feet. Maybe you stay upright here. Maybe you forward fold out over your legs. You can use the block under your forehead. Maybe 5 to 10 breaths here, just whatever you can tolerate without getting anxious, right? Or itchy, because this is a tight area and it can get a little fidgety here. You can always come out of it and get back into it, right? You don't have to stay for 10 consecutive breaths. All right, if you want to stay here a little longer, go ahead and stay. I'm just going to move on to the next stretch and get this stuff out of the way. Get that foot off. The next stretch we're going to do is a quad opener, and we're going to use the wall. Or if you've got a couch at home, if you've got a couch at home, I don't know, maybe you don't. That sounded really dumb. Use your couch. You can use any sofa, couch, or love seat type situation, or like recliner chair. Whatever those things are called, overstuffed chairs, but something that you can put your foot up against the wall. So the blanket's going to be nice here for your knee, especially if you have hard floors. And I am going to use the blanket here for my knee because it does tend to crunch. So I'll show you the side view here. So you're going to come to kneeling on the floor. And I would say starting with the left foot on the floor, kneeling on your right knee, this foot wants to go up the wall or the couch or whatever you're using at home, right? This is called a couch stretch, and it's going to stretch the front of your right thigh and the front of your right hip. So I'm going to scooch this back. I'm going to crawl my foot up the wall as I slide my knee back to the wall, and you can stay here on your hands, on your left foot, right? If the left foot to the floor is pulling too much along the front of your right hip, instead of taking your right knee away from the wall, you might take the left knee down to the floor instead, okay? And then what you can do is use blocks or a chair, right? You could bring the chair seat out in front of you and then work your way up here. So this may be a better modification to get, because you really want to open this thigh up. And if you take that knee away and stay out in a forward fold, you're going to work the middle of the quad. You know, you're not going to, you might feel it more in here, but, and again, this just depends on everybody's body, what part is tight on you. But for me, I need to really get right here. It's not this, it's right here for me. So I am going to take my left foot back to the floor. And then I'm going to work on trying to get a little bit more upright. And then my heart to the wall. Just takes my breath away sometimes. I'm pushing into that left foot and it's slipping away because I have lotion on my feet. Shouldn't have done that. Okay, so couch stretch out the front of that left hip. And then if you can, you know, you may even try to get the left hip away from the wall, knee on the wall, heart back. Okay, so this is going to fire it up a little bit, or head back, heart up. Now I can feel it in my front right hip. Your right toes point straight up. And then pull your right hip up to the ceiling, almost like you can pull the knee away from the wall, but you're not going to. Right, and you can stay there as long as you really want to. Slowly crawl away from that. And then I would suggest a little cat-cow or a little hip sway in between side just to release that right hip. Take it out of that major stretch it was in. And set your second side up when you're ready. Again, you can start kneeling on your right knee. The left knee can come back, left foot up the wall. You can stay kneeling on your right knee, and this may still give you, and this does give me a nice little stretch in the left hip. Sometimes going deeper doesn't make it any better, or taking the next kick up doesn't always make you feel more. In fact, I feel plenty here, so I could stay here and probably be fine. Yeah. Honestly, this is really better. Oh. Yeah, I like that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so use your modification for each side and try to stay on each side for about 5 to 10 breaths just to get that left hip open before moving into this back bend. So we got the outer hips, the back of the hips, and now we're getting the front of the hip, which is really important. Okay, and you can come out of that when you're ready. Pause the video if you're gonna work on that a little longer. Now that your front hips are nice and open and your thighs feeling good, we're gonna take Supta Virasana with a little heart lift. So I'm gonna use 2 blocks, and you don't need to be to the wall for this. We're gonna use the wall again in a moment, so if you wanna stay there. But I'm gonna set these blocks up behind so that I can start to take reclining hero back onto this block. Hopefully that block is gonna hit me in my shoulder blades when I lean back. Hero pose, the knees are together pointing straight forward. The thighs are into your calf muscles are squeezing into your thighs, and then your toes are pointing straight back with your heels squeezing into your hips. If you want to sit on a blanket or an additional block just to lift your hips to get off of your knees, do that, because sitting down might pull across the front of that knee, so you may need a little lift underneath your hips. So an extra block here is fine if you've got 3, or a blanket or a little cushion. And then the third block, I'm gonna take it back here and hope that these line up. They never do, but you never know. It's first time for everything. I'm just gonna slowly lower down. Elbows, elbow, heart. Nope, not even close. It's gonna come forward a little bit. There we go. And then, there we go. So I actually want this to come down a little lower. There we go. That head coming up was really pulling on my knees for some reason. So just another way to remember that your body's, another way to, make you aware that your body is connected in so many ways from toe to head. Okay, and then press your hips up to the ceiling. So take your expression of this posture that feels best for your body, but we want that forehead lower than the chest, chin, okay? So there's this back bend happening right here, okay? So some kind of a prop to get your heart up, your hips up, and your knees down and your head down so that there's an arc here. And then stay here, 5 to 10 breaths, take your time. This may be your back bend, this may be where you stay, okay? And if you wanna move on, we'll move on. To come out of it, when you are ready, you're gonna push down into your elbows, head comes up, hands come to the floor, and then when you do come out of it, just sit for a moment before rushing into any kind of a cat-cow or tabletop position. Let your back relax. Now we're gonna move into the first expression, the first modification of Viparita Dandasana. I'm gonna use the wall and 2 bolsters, and I'm using an extra blanket just to give myself a little extra lift. The bolsters are gonna cross like a T, so my first bolster is lengthwise, and the second bolster is coming right over the top to create a T shape. And then this blanket I have over the top and of the second bolster. You could also stagger it this way, so it gives you a little bit more prop on both ends. And because we're gonna sit on this bolster, and so on this portion, if you need a little extra height, this helps. If it feels like from here to here, it's this big, right, crunch, like a stair step instead of a smooth rounding shape, okay? Like the C, we want a C shape instead of an angular shape, right? So I'm gonna sit here on the bolster. You want your feet to touch the wall. And so if they don't, you can always pull the bolster up and down. So take your time to figure out, you got feet against the wall. You may have to move your mat or your bolsters out. And then I'm gonna lie back, and I want this to come up on my back and my shoulders to come down towards the floor. So I am gonna have to scooch this a little closer, a little too far away. Oh, and I'm still falling off. I'm gonna go a little closer. So something I'm noticing is my feet start legs straight, and then I get I move myself away from the wall. So I'm gonna start with my feet on the wall, knees bent, sit on the bolster, lie back over this, and then straighten out the legs. There we go. Okay, and here we are. This is it. So keep pressing into the wall with your feet. And the shoulders don't need to even come to the floor. Ooh, this is a good back bend, right? You can always reach your arms above head. I feel like that just puts too much pain in the low back and the mid back even. So I'm gonna keep my arms out to the side here. So I would definitely recommend that for this. If you are gonna reach your arms above head, I just don't even do it. Just take your arms out to the side. We'll save that for the next variation. Keep pressing into the wall though with your feet. And this is one way to go right here. So you can stay here and work this back bend, breathing, okay? So that you can breathe smooth, easy breath. That's the thing about back bends. When you're in them, sometimes the breath is really hard to smooth out and find that nice pattern. So you can stay here and just work on the breath. And then if you're ready, we can move on to the next modification of this posture, the next phase. When you are ready to come out of this, you're going to push down on the floor or push down to the bolster with your back, take a little sit up, and then use your hands on the floor to come up. And then if this is the end of your Viparita Dandasana practice today, then you can stay here and maybe even then get a nice little forward fold in. All right, we'll move on to the next variation. All right, the next phase or progression of this posture, this back bend, we're gonna use a chair, the wall, with 2 blocks stacked side to side on their tallest height. Your heels are gonna go on those blocks and your feet to the wall. The chair is facing the back, the chair back is facing the wall, so the chair seat is facing out. And then I've got a bolster down here for my head to come down. This sometimes digs into my back, so I have a blanket so that I can pad up my upper back area. So I'm gonna start to sit on the edge of the blanket because when I slide through, the blanket's gonna go, okay? So I don't want to have the blanket all the way through, otherwise it'll come up off the lip. And you really want that padding there if you're sensitive in your spine. To start, you can use your hands on the chair back, and then I'm gonna take my heels up to the wall. And then right here, it may be just a matter of pushing your feet into the wall and taking your heart open and holding onto the chair back. You don't even need to let your head come back to the bolster. But if it's possible, your head comes down to the bolster. And then you can reach your arms through for the back of the chair legs. And then press into the wall with your feet. So I've kind of lost the contact with my heels. I'm not gonna fret about that. At least I've got the balls of my feet on the wall, and then my heels on the bolster, on the blocks. Whew. Find that breath here. This one's getting tough. So I'm squeezing my glutes, pressing into the wall with my feet, lifting my hips a little bit, opening my heart more, rolling my shoulders down to the floor, pressing into the floor with the top of my head. So it's not the back of my head, it's the top of my head, like headstand. All right, and then to come up out of this, lift, grab the chair back, pull yourself up, and sit. Not a forward fold right away, just a nice little sit. That's a good one. That's a great place to stay and have that be your practice. If you're ready though, you can move on and you're not in any pain, we can move on to the next progression. So the next progression, the next phase of this is the exact same setup that we just used, and I'm going to have 2 belts on the front chair legs so that we can start to work the arms overhead in this pose. So I'm just going to strap a belt around each chair leg and then have that there, and then the second belt, I'll put on the other one. I've also repositioned my chair because I felt that it was a little too far away from the wall on my first go at this, because I really wanted my heels to be on the wall. In Viparita Dandasana, your heels should be on the floor, and eventually your legs are straight, your head's on the floor, and you're holding your head like headstand, creating, it'd be almost like if you took headstand and flipped over. And it feels sometimes as bad as that sounds. So this is probably one of my favorite ways to practice this, because you can start to get the arm action in and understand what's supposed to happen between your feet and your arms. it's a long distance for a lot of communication to happen. And then a lot of stuff in between can hurt. I'm gonna take the bolster out and replace it with another blanket so that I can actually work the head to the floor, or the arms to the floor. So I'm gonna put the blanket here. That way when my head comes down to the blanket, my forearms can come down on the floor. If this works, it might be a miracle. I'm just guessing at the proportions here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump on through this chair. It's not the easiest thing to do. You notice the first expression of this, I was already seated, so you couldn't see my ungraceful attempt. All right, so I'm here, I got my blanket again because I want that padding in my back. That does not feel great when it's squished in there. And then again, like I said, I've moved a little closer to the wall so that I can get a better foot connection to the wall. So I'm gonna take my foot up to the wall, just like the seated variation or the bolster variation on the floor. I'm probably gonna, I think I overestimated the length. So I need my knees bent when I start, and that's a good measurement for you. If your knees are bent, that's probably gonna work. And then you can straighten them out and go back. All right, so I'm gonna start to lean back, let my butt slide through, let the heart open up, head comes down towards the floor. And then I've got the push into the wall with my feet. I'm gonna grab the belt and start to pull my elbows in. So you can keep walking your hands up to the chair legs and the elbows move down to the floor. Push into your head, push into the wall with the feet. And keep squeezing your elbows in toward each other. All right. And then release that. Lift your head, hands to the chair back. Push into the wall with your feet, pull on the chair back. And enjoy not being in that anymore. No, that was a really good, I like this variation a lot. It's really a good one because that's going to teach you how to get your hands closer and elbows in. So what happens when we start to move into the full expression of this pose on the floor is the elbows like to come way out so you can really overextend your upper back. We want to keep the elbows in. So I like this to learn there's a pull in, right? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the actual posture. So you can keep working with this. I love to use the yoga wheel for this. If you have a yoga wheel at home, use it. And a stability ball is also a really good prop to use. And we'll get this stuff out of the way and get set up for that. All right, so let's move on to it's actually Viparita Dandasana or Viparita Dandasana. Viparita means 2 foot. Viparit means inverted, and Dandasana is staff pose. So that's what we're taking, the back bend. That looks like an inverted staff. I've got a yoga wheel and my stability ball. So I'm going to start with the stability ball to show you how you would start to move into this with a little bit more support than the wheel, but less support than the chair and what we had just been working on against the wall. This is fun. I love the wheel because it makes you use your core because it can roll all over the place. The wheel has its own pros and cons, and so does the ball, and some of them are easier or harder. So it just depends on, again, where the tightness is, where the restriction is in your body, where you're struggling with the connection of this pose to your body. So I'm going to start sitting on the stability ball. You can definitely use the wall here, especially with the stability ball, if you're lucky enough to have ropes on your wall at home. That's great. So my feet are going to start at the wall again, and I'm just going to start to, and actually I would suggest have your knees come to the wall for this. And if you don't have ropes, this might be a little tricky. I would say sit a little more forward on the ball so that it's starting up higher. And then there we go. So that doesn't feel as challenging in the balance. Again, those ropes are nice to have, but who has that, right? Or curtains, just don't pull your curtains down. Be kind of cool. If you do that, record that and send it to me. And then you can start to open up behind, right? And now my head's gonna come down towards the floor. My hands are actually coming to the floor like wheel. So here's Urdhva Dhanurasana. So this is Urdhva Dhanurasana is a prep for Viparita Dandasana, that inverted staff pose. So this would be a great place to go and stay right here. I'm still squeezing my glutes and pressing my hips up to the ceiling, so I'm not just dropping down into the ball, okay? So this is not okay. Flop, flop, right? So knees in, point to the wall, hips up, and then you can take your hands to the floor behind your head interlace your fingers, elbows to the floor, and then you start to press your legs out towards straight. And there's the pose. Legs ideally together, but I'm taking them apart because I've got the dumb back issue I'm dealing with. Ta-da, there you go. Coming out of it. It's fun. Don't get a head rush when you come up. Breathe when you come up. All right, I'll show you the wheel now. These are phenomenal. If you've got a stability ball, you can use it for so many things in your yoga practice. Okay, onto the wheel. So now I'm gonna sit with the wheel behind me. I'm still gonna use the wall. And this one's really nice because you can move into this. This one, the pro for this is, with using the wheel, is that it's a little bit more stable than the ball, because the ball can roll around 360, right? Not so much with the wheel. My shirt keeps lighting up, so if that's an issue, you might just take the dumb shirt off. And then I'm going to lean back here. I love the wheel for this because you can grab the wheel with your hands and start to work that arm variation. So right here, using, you don't even need to use the wall for this, but this is going to help to start to push slowly back, down towards the floor, boom, and there you are. Okay, and then the wheel is there, pulling your heart up, pushing your heart up. Get your feet flat on the floor though. There we go. And then you would lower back down with your butt, rolling back up to seated. Okay, so if you don't have one of these yet, Amazon, baby. Okay, so let's do the actual posture, coming into it how I would from Urdhva Dhanurasana. So we're gonna come into, I'm just gonna come into Urdhva Dhanurasana. From upward bow, then you lower your elbows down to the floor, and then you start to walk your feet out. So a great modification from on the floor without using props is to not straighten your legs out, so I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna start coming into upward bow. And actually, you don't even need to come into the full upward facing bow pose. If this is a sequenced set of postures in a yoga practice, we would probably do wheel and then Viparita Dandasana. So I would probably have you come into Urdhva and then come down, head, hands, elbows. And so here you could have your knees bent is what I was talking about, right? And then you can start to straighten your legs out. And then push right here, okay? And then you would come back in with your feet, hands back to the floor, lift, lower. And that's all she wrote. That's all I got. All right, so have fun with this. This is just to help you build up your practice. You know, we do all these things in the yoga studio, in the classes. But at home, it's nice to play with these things, bits and pieces. So I think it's really important as yogis to have a home practice and a studio practice and have a teacher to help guide you, which is what we're doing with this. These videos are really helpful for that, hopefully. And then also to have you and your breath and your meditations and your self-awareness to guide you through your practice, because when you get into a room of yogis, it's really easy to say, she's doing that, I'm going to do it. He can do that, why can't I? You know, we're human. We can't avoid that thought process. I do it. Everybody does it. So just learning to have these tools at home really helps to create your autonomy in your practice rather than it's all about you. It is absolutely 100% all about you. All right. Let's take some stretches to get out of that back bend. So a forward fold is nice. Again, this ball, if you've got a stability ball at home, we'll love it for the forward fold. So I'm going to take a wide leg forward fold just to get out of those inner thighs. My hamstrings cramped a little bit on the back on that last expression. So I just love to use the ball here to forward fold and gently stretch out the hamstrings. I don't want to freak them out. I don't want to shock them. So a lot of ways you could do this. You could have the ball up in your belly, ribs, and just rest. Oh, so nice. And even here you can go side to side, rock. Well, if you don't have this available at home, I mean, you could do the same thing on the floor, right? You can forward fold out to the floor. You could go side to side. And maybe just take a break and fold without any movement. Good. And then as long as you want to stay there, please pause the video and stay in any of these forward folds, or take any forward folds that you already know you love. I'm going to take easy noose pose with my feet on the floor. I'm going to scooch my heels closer in toward, or my butt closer in towards my heels, and then just hook or hug with the left arm. I'm going to hug. It just feels better right now, so that I can lift and lengthen out of my low back and twist. And then after a few moments there, come back to center, and then just kind of hug your legs and fall back like a cat stretch. And then we'll take the second side twist. Hug with your right arm, left fingertips back, and then just gently twist off to your left. Ooh, you'll feel that in the upper back. So that's a big upper back bend that we just did. All of the back bends should happen in your upper back, but that one especially, like, you can feel it, yeah. Okay, and then release that after a few moments. And if you want to take bound angle, nice little forward fold to open up the inner hips once again. Stretch out over your toes. After a back bend, I like to take a bigger angle, so something almost to Kurmasan turtle pose, maybe even turtle. So that would be the feet forward. Kurmasan, the legs are out and you're wrapped around underneath. We don't need to contort right now. We just did. So I like this very modified version of turtle Kurmasan where my feet are far away. I've got a big diamond shape. And then you can take your hands under and just put your hands on the tops of your feet. If you've got a block or anything handy that you could rest on your feet, you could rest your forehead there. And so in these forward folds, it's not really a matter of how deep can I get into flexibility, but how deep can I get into recovery from that back bend. Okay, and then take as long as you want. Again, with these forward folds, relax, take a brief shavasana, and let your back completely release. All right, good job, yogis. Thank you. So I'm going to use the stability ball first. I think that this one's really nice. So my stability balls are kind of squishy. Anyways, I'm going to redo all that because that was awful.